The galaxy had always looked down upon humanity, dismissing them as a minor, inconsequential species with no real power or influence beyond their small blue planet. Every major civilization, from the towering Zalari warlords to the serpentine Krillari strategists, regarded humans as primitive and laughable, assuming that no species with such fragile bodies and limited technological advancement could ever pose a serious threat. For decades, humanity had quietly expanded its knowledge of space travel, military engineering, and strategic operations, while outwardly maintaining a facade of modesty and compliance. On the fringes of the Zarion system, a fleet of Zalari dreadnoughts prepared for a demonstration of dominance, intending to humiliate the human colonies that had begun settling in the region. The humans, aware of the impending incursion, did not respond with fear or desperation, but with meticulous preparation and careful planning that the aliens could not have imagined. Admiral Nathaniel Green, a seasoned strategist with decades of experience in interstellar defense and unconventional warfare, studied every available piece of intelligence on the Zalari fleet, their attack patterns, and their reliance on brute force tactics that had overwhelmed countless other civilizations. Humanity had spent years developing adaptive cloaking technology, electromagnetic disruption arrays, and modular attack ships capable of rapid configuration, all designed to exploit the weaknesses in overconfident opponents. As the Zalari fleet entered orbit around the human outpost, they expected a simple submission or token resistance, underestimating not only human ingenuity, but also the depth of their resolve and the complexity of their strategic mindset. The initial strike was calculated to seem like a minor skirmish, with a few human vessels engaging the enemy at precise angles, drawing Zalari attention and exposing the gaps in their formation. Each movement appeared chaotic to an untrained observer, yet every maneuver was part of a grander strategy that relied on misdirection, feints, and the exploitation of predictable enemy behavior. On board the human flagship, officers coordinated with unprecedented synchronization, transmitting commands through encrypted channels while simultaneously preparing contingency responses for every possible alien countermeasure. While the Zalari relied on sheer firepower and overwhelming numbers, the humans employed a combination of advanced sensor networks, rapid deployment fighters, and decoy drones, creating illusions of vulnerability that lured the aliens into positions of disadvantage. The first clash seemed almost humiliating to the humans from an external perspective, with small skirmishes drawing little attention, but it was part of a deliberate psychological gambit intended to instill overconfidence in the Zalari commanders. By the third hour of engagement, the human forces had already subtly repositioned their main strike units, using previously uncharted spatial corridors and exploiting gravitational anomalies that distorted the alien sensor readings. Each alien attack was anticipated, diverted, and neutralized with minimal human losses, leaving the Zalari increasingly frustrated and confused as their traditional tactics failed to yield results. As the battle escalated, the humans revealed one of their most unexpected weapons, adaptive energy projectors capable of recalibrating in real time to counter alien shield technology, effectively rendering the Zalari's most formidable defenses useless. The aliens, for the first time, began to realize that the species they had mocked for centuries possessed not only courage and resilience, but also an ability to innovate and adapt far beyond their expectations. Admiral Green watched the chaos unfold with calm determination, issuing orders that were both precise and flexible, knowing that every movement, every engagement, and every feint contributed to a larger orchestration designed to dismantle the alien pride piece by piece. The human fleet, though smaller in number, began systematically disabling Zalari command ships, cutting off communications and causing confusion within the alien ranks. Unprepared for such coordinated disruption, the Zalari commanders resorted to desperate, erratic measures, which only played into humans' hands. Humanity's tactics were no longer just offensive. They had become the embodiment of offensive ingenuity, striking at the heart of the alien fleet in ways that had never been seen in galactic warfare before. The aliens, who had once laughed at human vulnerability, were now witnessing the collapse of their assumptions, their arrogance being shattered with every maneuver executed by a civilization they had deemed insignificant. By the time the first wave of human strikes reached the core of the Zalari formation, entire squadrons had been rerouted, incapacitated, or forced into retreat, leaving a trail of bewildered and demoralized alien soldiers struggling to comprehend the unexpected depth of human tactical brilliance. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical one, with alien morale collapsing even as they tried to regroup and reassess the situation, unable to predict the next move in a battle that was meticulously orchestrated to exploit every weakness in their strategy. Humanity's victory would not only be measured in ships destroyed or territory held, but in the irreversible lesson it imparted the galaxy. That underestimating humans was a mistake that no civilization could afford to repeat, and that ingenuity, adaptability, and courage could turn the tide against even the most powerful adversaries. As the battle raged across the orbiting moons of the Zarion system, the Zalari High Command scrambled to make sense of the unfolding catastrophe, sending frantic transmissions and attempting to coordinate counterattacks that were already anticipated and nullified by human strategy. The humans did not rely on brute force, but on foresight and cunning, using decoy fleets and holographic projections to mislead the aliens into committing their forces into traps that had been carefully laid over months of reconnaissance and planning. On the surface of the largest moon, human engineers activated subterranean railgun arrays and orbital missile batteries hidden beneath the terrain, striking Zalari ships that thought themselves safe in perceived dead zones outside human control. The aliens, unaccustomed to opponents who combined tactical patience with psychological warfare, began to fracture their command structure, with lower-ranking officers questioning the wisdom of their leaders and the validity of centuries-old doctrines that led them to underestimate humanity. Admiral Green monitored the battle from the flagship's command bridge, observing through multiple sensor feeds the unfolding of a master plan that had been executed with military precision. He issued commands that simultaneously feigned vulnerability and lured enemy forces into corridors where automated defense systems and ambushes awaited, creating the illusion that human forces were scattered and desperate, while in reality, they were converging into concentrated strikes capable of incapacitating entire wings of the Zalari Armada. On board the alien dreadnought Verith, Commander Slithrix paced the command deck, rage and disbelief contorting his features as his attacks failed one after another. Every strategy he deployed was countered before it could achieve impact. Every calculated maneuver anticipated and neutralized by humans who seemed to know his thoughts before he acted. The Zalari had assumed that human strategy would be simplistic, reactive, and predictable, but what they faced was a level of adaptive thinking that combined intuition, data analysis, and unconventional tactics at a scale no single species in the galaxy had yet mastered. Small human strike teams boarded disabled alien ships, not to pillage but to sabotage critical systems, creating chain reactions that caused confusion and destruction across multiple vessels simultaneously. These teams moved with coordination that blurred the line between individual initiative and centralized command, demonstrating a uniquely human combination of courage, ingenuity, and independent judgment. Meanwhile, human diplomats sent encoded messages to other alien species observing the battle, highlighting the tactical brilliance and honor-driven precision of humanity, sowing seeds of doubt among potential allies of Zalari, and ensuring that their defeat would be witnessed and remembered throughout the galaxy. On distant observation posts, alien analysts recorded the humans' movements, noting the rapid recalibration of their attack vectors, the deceptive use of cloaking technology, and the seamless integration of electronic warfare into kinetic combat, all executed in a way that defied conventional logic and military doctrine. The aliens were forced to recognize that the human strength lay not in sheer numbers or size of ships, but in the synergy of intellect, experience, and morale, a combination that had allowed them to turn every disadvantage into a strategic advantage. As the Zalari attempted to regroup, Admiral Green initiated a series of diversionary maneuvers that drew significant portions of the alien fleet into gravitational well of the moon's core, where the humans had secretly positioned a network of mines and gravitational disruptors. Entire squadrons found themselves immobilized, their weapon systems malfunctioning, and their shields rendered ineffective, as if the galaxy itself had conspired to ensure that human tactics achieved maximum impact with minimal losses. The alien morale deteriorated further when human fighter squadrons appeared seemingly from nowhere, striking command vessels with pinpoint accuracy, cutting off supply lines and communications, and leaving the Zalari scrambling to find any coherent response to an enemy that seemed omnipresent, unpredictable, and inexorably precise. On the human side, The crew remained composed, their focus unwavering as each operation unfolded exactly as planned, a testament to years of training, discipline, and extraordinary ability to innovate under pressure. Humanity's success was not only in destroying enemy ships, but in undermining the aliens' confidence in their own methods and leadership, demonstrating that arrogance and prejudice could be as fatal as any weapon. As the battle entered its sixth hour, it became increasingly clear to the Zalari commanders that their assumptions about human inferiority had been catastrophically wrong, and that they were now confronting a species whose tactical depth and courage defied imagination, capable of reshaping the balance of power across the galaxy through intellect, adaptability, and relentless determination. Each alien attempt to reclaim control was anticipated and countered, leaving the Zalari floundering in a labyrinth of traps, diversions, and relentless pressure, unable to regain initiative or morale, as the humans methodically dismantled their fleet piece by piece. By the end of the day, what had begun as a routine demonstration of dominance had transformed into a profound lesson. Humanity, underestimated for centuries, had revealed not only the capacity to fight, but to outthink, outmaneuver, and humiliate the most formidable adversaries in the galaxy, shattering alien pride and leaving the entire sector in awe of their unexpected power and brilliance. As the remnants of the Zalari fleet retreated in disarray, the humans did not pursue recklessly, but instead tightened control over contested zones, deploying rapid response patrols, automated defense platforms, and sensor networks that ensured any attempted regrouping would be detected immediately. On board the flagship, Admiral Green reviewed incoming intelligence, noting patterns in alien behavior that revealed their growing desperation and disorientation, and issued orders to exploit these weaknesses with precision strikes that combined both psychological and tactical pressure. The aliens, now forced into fragmented command chains, attempted to negotiate through intermediaries, only to discover that human diplomacy was as calculated as their military strategy, offering terms that subtly undermined Zalari cohesion, while reinforcing the perception of human strength and resilience. Across multiple battlefields, humans employed unconventional tactics that further bewildered the alien forces. Decoy convoys mimicked critical supply routes, only to draw the enemy into ambushes that destroyed entire squadrons. Electromagnetic pulses temporarily disabled the aliens' advanced shields, and adaptive drones infiltrated command hubs to manipulate sensor readings and communications, creating confusion and internal conflict among Zalari officers. The aliens had never encountered an opponent capable of such multi-layered deception, blending offensive and defensive operations with strategic intelligence to create an almost omnipotent presence on the battlefield. On the ground at human outposts, small teams of engineers and scientists coordinated orbital and surface defenses, implementing rapid countermeasures that turned even minimal resources into devastating force multipliers, demonstrating a level of ingenuity that astounded observers from allied species who had monitored the conflict from afar. Admiral Green personally oversaw the coordination of these complex operations, seamlessly integrating orbital bombardments, fighter sweeps, sabotage missions, and electronic warfare into a single cohesive strategy that appeared effortless but required extraordinary foresight, adaptability, and leadership. Each engagement forces Zalari into reactive maneuvers, making predictable errors that the humans exploited relentlessly. The aliens, who prided themselves on centuries of military doctrine, began to question their assumptions about warfare, realizing that human adaptability and creativity operated outside the confines of traditional strategy and rendered conventional tactics largely irrelevant. In one decisive encounter, a human strike team infiltrated an Zalari command station hidden within an asteroid belt, disabling navigational systems and redirecting several alien capital ships into preset ambush zones where human missile batteries and concentrated fighter swarms awaited. The operation was executed with flawless timing, resulting in catastrophic losses for the aliens and further eroding morale across their scattered fleets. Observers from distant civilizations recorded these events with awe, noting the humans' ability to orchestrate simultaneous operations across multiple fronts, blending intelligence, deception, and precision attacks in a manner that no species had previously demonstrated. The psychological impact on Zalari leadership was profound, their confidence shattered, their pride wounded, and their ability to command effectively compromised as junior officers and enlisted crews witnessed the systematic unraveling of their fleets. On the human side, morale soared. fueled not only by victory, but by the realization that years of preparation, ingenuity, and perseverance had culminated in a strategic demonstration that would resonate throughout the galaxy for generations. Humanity's approach combined patience, innovation, and adaptability, using smaller, more agile units to outmaneuver larger, heavily armed forces, demonstrating that intelligence and coordination could surpass raw power when executed with precision. As the battle extended into its second day, the Zalari attempted to consolidate scattered forces, only to encounter pre-planned human traps, ambushes, and electronic interference that disrupted every maneuver, leaving the aliens increasingly isolated and ineffective. Every time the Zalari attempted a regrouping, the humans anticipated it, adjusting their deployments, repositioning forces, and initiating simultaneous strikes that compounded the chaos and accelerated alien losses. The cumulative effect of these operations was devastating. Alien supply lines severed, command structures fragmented, and morale at an all-time low, leaving the Zalari fleet vulnerable to further exploitation. By the end of the second day, what had begun as a tactical engagement had transformed into a comprehensive demonstration of human strategic superiority, showcasing ability to combine deception, intelligence, technology, and sheer resolve in ways that left the aliens powerless to respond. Humanity had proven that being underestimated could be turned into the ultimate advantage, transforming apparent weakness into a source of strength, unpredictability, and tactical brilliance that shattered alien pride and reshaped perceptions across the galaxy about the true capabilities of Earth's inhabitants. The consequences of this engagement would ripple far beyond the Zarion system, serving as a warning to all civilizations that the underestimated humans could not only defend themselves but could dominate, innovate, and overcome even the most formidable galactic powers through courage, ingenuity, and relentless strategy. As the Zalari attempted to flee beyond the contested sector, humanity's operations expanded with calculated precision, establishing forward operating bases on nearby asteroids and moons to intercept any retreating forces, and to ensure that no alien vessel could escape without being detected or engaged. Admiral Green coordinated these efforts with meticulous attention to detail, integrating orbital defense arrays, sensor nets, and rapid response strike teams to create a multi-layered network that turned the region into a trap from which the Zalari could not extricate themselves. On board the flagship, communications officers relayed real-time intelligence from reconnaissance drones, small scout ships, and intercepted transmissions, feeding the information into strategic simulations that allowed Green to predict enemy movements with near-perfect accuracy. Every alien attempt to regroup or mount a counteroffensive was anticipated and nullified, often before the Zalari themselves understood the humans' intentions. Across the sector, human forces employed unconventional tactics that defied the Zalari's expectations. False retreats lured enemy squadrons into asteroid fields rigged with magnetic mines. Cloaked frigates intercepted communications to feed misleading data, and adaptive drone swarms disabled critical subsystems, creating cascading failures that left alien vessels vulnerable to precision strikes. The aliens, who had once dismissed humanity as inconsequential, now found themselves reacting to events in ways that were wholly dictated by human strategy, their autonomy and confidence undermined, as each move they made played into traps they could not foresee. Human pilots executed synchronized maneuvers that mimicked larger forces, creating illusions of overwhelming strength, while in reality, relatively small squadrons controlled multiple battlefronts simultaneously. Engineers on orbital platforms executed rapid repairs and modifications, adapting weapons and defense systems to evolving enemy tactics within hours, a speed of innovation Zalari could not match due to their rigid command hierarchies and over-reliance on traditional doctrine. On the surface of the Zarion system's second-largest moon, a small contingent of human special forces infiltrated a partially disabled Zalari command hub, planning electromagnetic disruptors that interfere with navigation and weapons targeting, further destabilizing alien operations and causing a chain reaction of errors across multiple fleets. The aliens' attempts to retaliate with overwhelming force were systematically dismantled by a combination of decoys, adaptive defenses, and prepositioned firepower, leaving entire squadrons stranded or destroyed without the ability to coordinate a coherent response. Throughout the conflict, human leadership emphasized coordination, situational awareness, and adaptability, traits that allowed them to turn each alien misstep into a strategic advantage. By mid-cycle of the ongoing battle, it became evident that the humans were not simply defending but dominating, controlling the tempo, location, and narrative of every engagement. The Zalari, despite their technological superiority, found themselves at a disadvantage in every aspect of strategy, logistics, and morale, their pride eroding with every failed attack and every successful human countermeasure. As human forces consolidated their control, they also projected strength through psychological operations, broadcasting images of disabled alien vessels and communications of intercepted alien panic to other galactic observers, ensuring that humanity's capability and resolve were recognized beyond the immediate battlefield. Alien fleets that had previously considered humans a minor nuisance began to question every assumption about Earth's inhabitants, facing the uncomfortable truth that the underestimated species possessed ingenuity, coordination, and resilience that could not be matched by conventional methods alone. In orbital skirmishes, human fighters executed rapid, precise strikes on command vessels while simultaneously drawing the bulk of enemy forces into zones of concentrated firepower, a tactic that combined deception, mobility, and concentrated force to devastating effect. Commanders on both sides realized that the humans were operating not just tactically, but strategically, thinking multiple steps ahead, controlling the battle space, and dictating enemy reactions in a way that made alien victories increasingly unlikely. By the fourth day of engagements, Zalari fleets were fractured, with isolated ships either destroyed or fleeing, their cohesion irreparably damaged by continuous psychological and tactical pressure. Humans, by contrast, maintained cohesion, discipline, and adaptability, exploiting weaknesses, improvising solutions, and turning every challenge into a stepping stone toward ultimate control. Admiral Green's vision of an integrated human strategy had been realized. The Zalari had underestimated not only human strength and ingenuity, but also the capacity for adaptability, coordination, and relentless pursuit of strategic objectives. What had begun as a minor conflict had transformed into a demonstration of human tactical brilliance, where even technologically superior foes were unable to predict, respond to, or counter the innovative maneuvers of a species they had long regarded as weak, leaving the galaxy with an indelible lesson in the consequences of underestimating humanity and the power of ingenuity combined with courage and discipline. As the Zalari remnants retreated further into uncharted space, humanity did not relent but instead used the lull to consolidate control, repair damaged vessels, and analyze the data collected from engagements that had systematically dismantled alien confidence and operational effectiveness. Admiral Green oversaw every facet of the operation, from coordinating orbital defense grids to managing intelligence from remote reconnaissance drones, ensuring that the humans maintained strategic superiority while minimizing unnecessary risk. Across multiple fronts, human forces continued to exploit the predictable tendencies of their adversaries, employing feints, electronic interference, and adaptive combat tactics to manipulate alien decision-making and force them into positions of disadvantage. Smaller human strike teams infiltrated abandoned or incapacitated alien vessels, gathering critical intelligence, installing temporary control nodes, and subtly altering communications to mislead the remaining fleet, creating further confusion and disarray within the Zalari command structure. The aliens, increasingly desperate, attempted to rely on raw firepower and overwhelming numerical superiority, only to discover that human ingenuity and coordination rendered these strategies ineffective. Each assault launched by the Zalari was met with precise countermeasures, from cloaked ambushes to adaptive shield calibrations, and every victory they managed was carefully staged by humans to funnel them toward traps that inflicted maximum damage while conserving human resources. On the ground at human outposts, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to adapt and enhance defensive and offensive systems, turning the terrain, orbital mechanics, and gravitational anomalies into strategic tools that magnified the effectiveness of human operations. Meanwhile, the human fleet operated with unprecedented cohesion, integrating orbital and surface operations, fighter sorties, and strategic bombardments into a single, seamless campaign that kept the aliens constantly reacting rather than initiating. The psychological impact on the Zalari was profound. Their belief in human weakness had been entirely shattered, leaving commanders struggling to maintain authority over increasingly demoralized crews and unable to predict or counter the ingenuity of their underestimated opponents. Humanity's use of misdirection and adaptive warfare had become a masterclass in strategy, combining the full spectrum of military, technological, and psychological operations into a coherent plan that systematically dismantled the alien forces while simultaneously preserving human lives and assets. In several key engagements, human forces exploited alien overconfidence, luring heavily armed squadrons into constrained zones where they were neutralized by gravitational traps, electronic interference, and coordinated fighter strikes, demonstrating the humans' ability to turn enemy strength into vulnerability. Admiral Green, recognizing the importance of morale and sustained operations, ensured that human crews remained disciplined, motivated, and fully informed of strategic objectives, a stark contrast of confusion, panic, and distrust spreading to the Zalari ranks. As the humans pushed forward, previously hidden capabilities were revealed, including rapid deployment missile arrays, adaptive energy projectors, and intelligent drone swarms capable of independent decision-making, all designed to exploit weaknesses in alien formations and disrupt conventional tactics. The aliens, struggling to maintain order, resorted to increasingly reckless maneuvers, only to find that every action had been anticipated and countered, leaving them exposed and vulnerable. On observation decks across the sector, Allied civilizations watched as humanity executed a campaign that combined audacious strategy with methodical planning, demonstrating that underestimation of humans was not merely a mistake, but a catastrophic misjudgment that could alter the balance of power across the galaxy. By the fifth day of operations, the Zalari had lost significant command ships, experienced severe attrition among their fighters, and seen the integrity of their fleet shattered, while humans maintained operational cohesion, high morale, and continuous pressure that left no opportunity for the aliens to recover. The humans' relentless combination of patience, adaptability, and tactical brilliance had transformed a seemingly uneven conflict into a decisive demonstration of dominance, proving that creativity, intelligence, and coordinated execution could overcome even superior technology and numbers. Each victory reinforced a lesson that humanity's strength lay not only in firepower, but in their ability to think several steps ahead, to manipulate the battlefield, and to exploit the arrogance and predictable behavior of opponents who had long dismissed them. As the Zalari fleet scattered in desperation, it became clear that humanity had redefined the parameters of warfare in the galaxy, setting a new standard for strategy, coordination, and resilience, and leaving no doubt that those who underestimated humans did so at their own peril. The consequences of these actions extended far beyond the immediate conflict, signaling to all civilizations that the underestimated species from a small blue planet had the capacity to outthink, outmaneuver, and dominate forces previously considered invincible, establishing a reputation that would resonate across the stars for generations. As the conflict entered its final decisive phase, the humans shifted from containment to controlled annihilation, applying pressure with deliberate restraint designed to force the remaining Zalari leadership into making fatal mistakes. Admiral Green recognized that the enemy was no longer thinking strategically but emotionally, driven by wounded pride, fear of disgrace, and internal division, and he adjusted human tactics to exploit the psychological collapse. Human intelligence units intercepted fragmented alien communications, revealing disputes among Zalari commanders, accusations of betrayal, and open defiance of central authority, confirming that their command structure was disintegrating under sustained pressure. Rather than rushing to finish the conflict, the humans slowed their advance, allowing the aliens just enough space to believe escape or regrouping was possible, only to close the trap of precision once the Zalari committed their remaining forces. Human fleets repositioned silently using low-emission travel, masking their movements behind stellar radiation and gravitational interference, while decoy signals suggested weakness and logistical strain that encouraged alien commanders to attempt a final coordinated strike. When the Zalari launched their desperate offensive, it unfolded exactly as predicted, with fragmented fleets converging toward what they believed was a vulnerable human command cluster. Instead, they entered a layered kill zone formed by overlapping missile corridors, adaptive energy fields, and autonomous strike platforms that activated in perfect sequence. Human vessels did not rush forward but held formation, allowing the environment itself to cripple the alien fleet as gravitational distortions disrupted navigation and targeting systems. Once the Zalari formations lost cohesion, human strike groups moved in with surgical precision, targeting engines, communication hubs, and power cores rather than destroying ships outright, ensuring maximum psychological impact and total loss of operational control. Boarding teams were deployed selectively, not to capture territory, but to extract intelligence and disable critical infrastructure, further accelerating the collapse of alien resistance. Across the battlefield, alien crews abandoned stations. Commanders issued contradictory orders. An entire squadron surrendered or powered down in confusion, unable to comprehend how a species they had once mocked now controlled every aspect of the conflict. Human commanders maintained discipline, preventing unnecessary destruction and ensuring that every action reinforced a message of dominance through control rather than chaos. Observers from neutral civilizations recorded the final engagements with growing unease, realizing that humanity's greatest strength was not aggression but restraint, the ability to apply exactly the amount of force required to achieve absolute victory. As the last coordinated Zalari resistance dissolved, Admiral Green authorized the final containment protocols, sealing escape routes and broadcasting a single, clear transmission to all alien vessels in the sector stating that hostilities would end immediately upon compliance. One by one, Zalari ships powered down their weapons, their once proud fleets reduced to silent, drifting remnants of shattered ambition. The humans did not celebrate openly, instead focusing on stabilization, recovery, and securing the region to prevent future conflict, demonstrating a maturity and foresight that further distinguished them from their defeated adversaries. Within hours, the battlefield fell silent, not with a sound of triumph, but with the heavy realization that the balance of power in the region had irrevocably shifted. Humanity had not merely won a battle. They had dismantled an empire's confidence, exposed a fatal weakness of arrogance, and proven that adaptability, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most entrenched galactic powers. The Zalari survivors, stripped of pride and certainty, were left to confront a new reality in which humans were no longer an afterthought, but a dominant strategic force whose actions would shape the future of interstellar relations. In the aftermath of the decisive engagements, humanity moved swiftly to reshape the political and strategic landscape of the sector, understanding that true victory extended beyond the battlefield and into the realm of perception, stability, and long-term deterrence. Admiral Green convened a secure assembly of human military leaders, diplomats, and analysts to evaluate the consequences of the campaign, emphasizing that restraint and clarity would define how the galaxy responded to humanity's rise. Human fleets transitioned from combat posture to enforcement and stabilization roles, escorting surrendered Zalari vessels to designated holding zones, repairing critical infrastructure, and reopening trade corridors that had been disrupted by the conflict. This deliberate shift sent a powerful message to observers across the galaxy that humanity sought order, not chaos, and dominance through competence rather than destruction. Intelligence units continued to monitor Zalari internal communications, confirming that their political structure was fracturing under the weight of defeat, with rival factions blaming one another for provoking a war they could not win and for underestimating a species that had outthought them at every turn. Human diplomats initiated controlled communications with neighboring civilizations, carefully sharing verified data from the conflict that highlighted human tactical discipline, adaptability, and measured use of force, ensuring that the narrative of the war reflected competence and resolve rather than aggression. On former battlefields, human engineers dismantled temporary weapon platforms and replaced them with sensor arrays and defensive installations, reinforcing security while signaling an end to hostilities. Crews aboard human ships reflected quietly on the campaign, recognizing that the victory had not come from superior numbers or brute strength, but from preparation, coordination, and the ability to adapt faster than any opponent. Meanwhile, among the Zalari survivors, the psychological impact deepened as crews were confronted with undeniable evidence that their doctrines were obsolete and their assumptions dangerously flawed. Many alien officers openly acknowledged that their pride had blinded them to the reality of human capability, admitting that they had dismissed flexibility, individual initiative, and adaptive thinking as weaknesses rather than strengths. Observers from distant systems began revising their strategic assessments of humanity, updating long-standing classifications that had labeled humans as minor or emerging powers, and replacing them with designations reserved for dominant strategic actors capable of influencing galactic stability. Admiral Green authorized the release of a final operational report to neutral councils, not as a threat, but as a factual account of events, detailing how human forces had responded proportionally, avoided unnecessary destruction, and concluded the conflict once strategic objectives were met. This transparency contrasted sharply with the secrecy and propaganda typical of major galactic powers, and further elevated humanity's reputation as a disciplined and rational force. As weeks passed, the sector stabilized under human oversight, piracy declined, trade resumed, and former conflict zones transformed into monitored corridors that benefited multiple civilizations. The Zalari leadership, weakened and divided, was forced to accept negotiations under terms that acknowledged human authority in the region while allowing limited autonomy, a resolution that preserved stability without annihilation. Throughout the galaxy, military academies, strategic councils, and intelligence agencies studied the conflict in detail, focusing not on human weapons but on their methods, adaptability, and willingness to challenge conventional doctrine. The lesson was unmistakable and deeply unsettling for many established powers. Humanity had not won by playing the existing game better, but by redefining the rules entirely. As humanity consolidated its position, the realization spread that future conflicts would no longer revolve around who possessed the largest fleets, but who could think faster, adapt sooner, and coordinate more effectively, a domain in which humans had proven themselves unmatched. The pride of the Zalari had not merely been broken. It had been transformed into a cautionary tale repeated across the stars, a reminder that underestimating humanity was not simply an insult, but a strategic error with irreversible consequences. The final phase of humanity's response unfolded not with violence, but with unmistakable authority, as the galaxy slowly absorbed the implications of what had occurred in the Zarion system and beyond. Admiral Green stood before a live interstellar assembly feed, addressing representatives from dozens of civilizations with calm clarity, stating that humanity had not sought conflict, but would never again accept dismissal, intimidation, or coercion. His words were not a threat, but a declaration of fact, supported by evidence no one could deny. Across human-controlled sectors, defensive networks were formalized into permanent structures, patrol routes standardized, and response protocols shared openly with neutral powers willing to cooperate, reinforcing the image of humanity as a stabilizing force rather than a conquering one. The Zalari, once feared and dominant, were reduced to cautious participants in negotiations, their representatives subdued and measured, their arrogance replaced by restraint learned through defeat. Internally, Zalari society began a painful reassessment of its values, doctrines, and assumptions, with scholars and officers alike acknowledging that rigid hierarchy and contempt for adaptability had nearly destroyed them. For humanity, the victory became a defining moment, not celebrated with grand parades or excess, but remembered as proof that preparation, unity, and clear thinking could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. Military academies on Earth and its colonies integrated the conflict into their core curriculum, emphasizing decision-making, initiative, and psychological awareness as the foundations of future defense. Civilian populations across human worlds felt a renewed sense of confidence, not rooted in dominance, but in the knowledge that they could no longer be ignored or threatened without consequence. Beyond human space, other civilizations quietly adjusted their policies, trade agreements, and military postures, choosing engagement and respect over provocation. The balance of power across the galaxy shifted subtly but permanently, as influence began to flow toward those who demonstrated competence rather than size or age. Humanity's name, once spoken with casual disregard, became associated with calculated strength, adaptability, and resolve. The unexpected tactics that had shattered alien pride became a reference point in every serious strategic discussion, a reminder that innovation could overturn centuries of assumed hierarchy. As years passed, the Zarion conflict was remembered not as a war of annihilation, but as a turning point, the moment the galaxy learned that humans did not need to dominate through fear, only through clarity of purpose and the willingness to act decisively when pushed. The lesson endured across generations and star systems alike. Humanity was no longer the underestimated species on the edge of galactic affairs, but a central force whose actions would shape the future of interstellar civilization, and whose restraint, once mistaken for weakness, had proven to be the most formidable strength of all.